Coming up on the live and interactive ACSA legislative lunch break, we'll bring you all of your latest news and information from the state capitol and CDE with an in-depth analysis of how it impacts your school community. Plus, we are talking about instructional materials today, what two school districts are doing to work through the challenges of instructional curriculum and what you can learn from them. That and more coming up. The live and interactive ACSA legislative lunch break starts now. And it's a couple of minutes after 1 o'clock. We welcome you on a Wednesday to the ACSA Legislative Lunch Break. I'm Najee Ali Khan, ACSA's Senior Director of Marketing and Communications. Welcome. We are honored to have you with us today. Edgar is on assignment right now, actually over at the state capitol. So if he has a chance to get back before our show ends, we'll go ahead and have him come on board and maybe get a little bit of an update on what's going on over at the state capitol, but thought we'd let you know about that. Neri Pais is first on the chat this morning. Julie Vitale, the superintendent over at Oceanside Unified, one of our ACSA board members, Mark Campbell, Grant Bennett, Ellen Wheeler, Deb Wickman, on with us. We're so excited to have you with us today on the show. We are going to talk about instructional materials today. There's been a lot of controversy out there about instructional materials. We're going to dive into what two school districts are doing to handle some of those challenges with instructional materials. We're also going to tell you about a new resource that is available for you on instructional materials. That's coming up in just a couple of moments. First off, let's get you a couple of news headlines, and we'll start with Senate Bill 494. For those of you who may not be familiar with this is the ACSA-sponsored legislation, and it's now heading back to an assembly floor vote. It has passed the assembly, but now there's a second level of voting that takes place in the assembly on SB 494, which was authored by Senate Education Chair Josh Newman. It would require a newly constructed school board to wait at least 30 days before taking action to terminate a superintendent or assistant superintendent. As we said, the bill passed one vote of the assembly. You can see the voting that was taking place right there. One more piece of voting will take place in the assembly. If you'd like to hear more about this bill, the author of the bill, Josh Newman, as we mentioned, he joined us on the show July 26th to talk about that piece of legislation and what was happening involving public education in his Senate district. We invite you to take a look at that episode. That's the July 26th episode of the ACSA Legislative Lunch Break. And if you're watching us on YouTube, it's right over there in one of our playlists. Let me also take you down to Orange, down in Southern California. The Orange Unified School District became the sixth district to adopt a parental notification policy. They did so last night. The vote was unanimous, 4-0, with three board members leaving the meeting before the vote due to what EdSource is reporting was a disruption in the very heated meeting. The policy would require parents or guardians to be notified if their child asked to use a different name or set of pronouns or asked to use a different gender's facilities like bathrooms or locker rooms. The policy would also mandate school principals be informed of pupils who are experiencing gender dysmorphia or gender incongruence, quoting that EdSource article. District officials would be required to tell school principals or counselors if a student makes any attempt or threat of suicide, and then the principal would be responsible for seeking out medical or mental health intervention. Of note, as we mentioned, those three board members who opposed the policy, according to EdSource, are the three members who walked out of that meeting. So that just happened in Orange Unified, again, the sixth district to adopt a parental notification policy. They did that by a unanimous vote last night, 4-0. Want to say hello to a couple of additional people out there. Ben Churchill, Greg Smedley with us. Let's see. Paula Seiter is with us. I just saw, yes, the superintendent over at Folsom Cordova Unified School District, Sarah Collegian, is with us. I wonder why Sarah would be with us today. The reason is we're going to have one of her district administrators come on the show in just a moment. As we switch gears to talk about instructional materials, I want to let you know that ACSA has partnered with our legal team over at F3 Law. On our ACSA Resource Hub right now, we have a one pager produced documents for you, F3 and ACSA, titled Adopting Curriculum and Related Resources. For additional information, for resources that have gone through the legal process, you can go ahead onto our ACSA Resource Hub, that is content.acsa.org, to see that document. Okay, so let's talk about instructional materials. Let's welcome in our two guests today. Dr. Ayanna Pease is the Director of Social Emotional Learning and Equity at the Folsom Cordova Unified School District, and Dr. Jordy Speaks, Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Student Supports at Oceanside Unified School District. Dr. Ayanna Pease, Dr. Jordy Sparks, thank you both so much for joining us here. The first time you've joined us on the ACSA Legislative Lunch Break, so we hope you enjoy your couple of minutes with us today. Let's go ahead and just dive right into this. Jordy, your district has been very proactive in informing school leaders about equity. In fact, going to the extent of preparing them for conversations that they may have with parents or guardians or other stakeholders. I have all of the documents right here. It's a lot of really great content. What has been the reaction to that, in addition to informing everyone about the current laws that are in place?
Thank you for the question, and thank you for the opportunity to speak about this really important topic. I think first and foremost, we are, I believe, in a moment of truth telling and the need for truth telling. And it's a really great opportunity for schools to be kind of on the front lines and being able to interact with communities, so parents, guardians, and caregivers. And so I think for us, a couple things resonate. One is that we believe that we should be having conversations about equity issues, about inequities that harm our students and that impact our students in negative ways, and as well as their families and communities. So the equity conversation has to be front and center in the work that we do. I think also we feel we need to equip our leaders to have these conversations and have the tools so that they may be empowered and equipped and informed, because we recognize that they are the most proximate to the students, to teachers, to staff, and also to parents and guardians and caregivers. So who better to have the information and the permission to share that information, so to speak, with parents and guardians on a regular basis than the actual school leaders at our sites. And I believe that the reaction from them, what I have seen has been that there's a level of preparedness, there's a level of confidence, and that there's also a level of clarity, that they can speak to real issues in real time about. And we feel like that's our responsibility centrally, to equip our leaders to do so.
Dr. Pease is Director of Social Emotional Learning and Equity. You've stated that one of your main goals is to support cultural literacy through transformative social emotional learning. One key part of transformative SEL is promoting, quote, rigorous and meaningful curriculum and instruction. Where are you now in the process of establishing curriculum that supports the district's SEL goals? And what challenges have you been experiencing in the school community with implementing these instructional materials?
Well, we have a multi-pronged approach, and under the direction of our amazing superintendent, Dr. Sarah Kaligian, we work across departments. And so that's my department working collaboratively with human resources, the ed services team, student and family supports, but specifically about instruction. Our district is really focused on solid tier 1 foundational instruction, which includes PBIS, transformative SEL, and in those instructional pieces where sites are also developing processes for strong tier 1 foundation. We also have essential standards and pacing, which allows students across core instruction to access the core instruction without the intervention impeding their instructional time. So our curriculum and instruction team, they are also modeling how to integrate SEL into core content areas. We're providing professional development by utilizing the SEL signature practices. So in summary, it is really a holistic organizational approach to ensure that we have meaningful curriculum and instruction. In terms of challenges, there are instances in which we provide resources for our recognition months, and we provide those instructional materials for our educators. And sometimes there are pushback on those materials. So the way we combat that is that if there is some concerns, I support the principal directly in addressing that concern, but I also support in the manner that if a parent wants to have a meeting, I'll facilitate that conversation with them as well.
Want to reintroduce our viewers to our two guests. Dr. Ayanna Pease is the Director of Social Emotional Learning and Equity at the Folsom Cordova Unified School District, and Dr. Jordy Sparks, Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Student Supports over at Oceanside Unified School District. Jordy, let me go to you, and folks, just to remind you, if you have questions or comments on our discussion today, go ahead and put those into the chat. Jordy, you've taken your discussion of equity beyond just this single subject. You're addressing critical race theory, which no district in California teaches, but you discuss ethnic studies. You lay out the laws with respect to LGBTQ, that student population. It is comprehensive. Why go this in depth? And do you, by extension, other leaders in your district believe there's a need to go this in depth where you're covering so many different subjects?
I'm sorry. I think I glitched for a second, so apologies for that. The short answer to your question is yes. I believe that there is a necessity for us to go this in depth, and again, equip our leaders and our staff to be able to speak to the topics that are on the minds of people who bring their children to our schools each and every day. So we have a responsibility to our parents, guardians, caregivers, community to be able to speak to the issues that are important to them and that are on their minds. And when we do so, we should be able to do so with facts. We should be able to do so with comprehensive state law and ed code that backs up what we're doing on a regular basis. And so we feel the need to equip our leaders and our staff with whatever talking point they may need. And I think also, the idea that if you don't tell your own story, someone will tell it for you it resonates with me, because I feel like there's a lot of misinformation that's out there that's necessary for us to be able to tell our own story and our own truth and speak directly to what we are and are not doing. And I think that type of clarity provides some security for folks. It provides some direction for folks. And in times when we don't agree on issues, we can at least be clear on what ed code and what state law we're following. So I think that's important as well. And then I think another reason why it's necessary to go this in depth is because we're proud of the equity work that we're doing. We're supported by an equity-minded Board of Education and an equity-minded superintendent and Dr. Vitale. And so we're proud of that work, and we want to continue to talk about what we are doing and not always be on the reactive side of things.
Dr. Pease, what strategies do you use to engage families and communities in your social emotional learning and equity work? And what is the approach when you discuss curriculum and instructional materials with them?
Specifically, when we're talking about instructional materials connected to social emotional learning, I really just try to place emphasis on the core competencies and that these are skills that we all need to be our best selves. So everybody wants their child to be a responsible decision maker, have good relationship skills, self-management, etc. This year, we're going to add something new to our program, in that we're going to host SEL for Families events. We're doing 2 of those. And then during those events, we're really going to focus on emphasizing the importance of family and community, relying on one another to create that safe and inclusive learning environment. So through SEL curriculum, we utilize Second Step, but within that program, there are resources that allow the parents to become involved in the learnings as well. So they're able to reinforce that teaching, whether it's through books or teachers sending a blurb in terms of what students are learning in class and just some different strategies that they can utilize at home. So those are our main pieces in terms of SEL and how we engage the family and community, and just understanding that, transformative SEL is really about everybody being part of the decision-making process, embracing differences, and just valuing every member of the community to be part of that decision-making process.
Let me ask both of you, because I think it's important to ask Um, because I know internally here in ACSA, we have these conversations all the time. There are stakeholders in our school communities that are attacking students of color. They are attacking our LGBTQ population, and they've gone on the offensive to remove student rights. I have to ask, because we always have to have like this crystal ball, and sometimes it's impossible, but sometimes it at least gives us an opportunity to think strategically. What is next? What do our viewers, our educators, what do they have to be prepared for? What is the next attack on public education? Dr. Pease, I'll have you respond first.
Okay. Well, first, I just want to acknowledge that it is a difficult time to be an educator. And so, and that's even magnified if your title includes the word equity or within that scope of work. So I think acknowledging that really validates the lived experience of educators. Unfortunately, we're in a time where humans are deeply divided, and honestly, I anticipate that that will continue. So I don't know specifically what's next, but I also know that I have to remain hopeful. So there have been other times in history where we've witnessed great division, but we also had people who are willing to step up and put themselves on the line. And that's what Dr. Bettina Love references as co-conspirators, and what John Lewis refers to as getting in good trouble. So I'm a firm believer in that we have to be courageous. We have to be professional troublemakers while maintaining an intentional focus on internal factors. And internal factors are the things that we can control when our young scholars are in our buildings. So basically, are we making sure that students and families feel valued, respected, and loved? And when we focus on those things and practice good self-care strategies, we can continue to fight the good fight. So one practice that I've developed throughout my career is called a smile file. And a smile file is a place where you keep all of your mementos that make you smile about your work. Again, this is tough work. And so that could be a thank you card, a letter from a student, whatever it is that brings you joy. And so when things get challenging, you are able to go through that file. I promise it will bring a smile to your face, but it gives you that energy that you need to keep going and to, never give up in advocating for your students and their families.
And Dr. Sparks.
Sure. First of all, I'm stealing the smile file idea. I love that. So thank you for that. I think, we like Dr. P said, we're in a very challenging time to be an educator. And I think that's especially true to be a leader and a school leader. And so it's imperative that we equip our leaders who are taking on an awesome task of leading schools and leading communities to speak with truth and to be able to talk about equity issues and be able to talk about some of the inherent inequities that exist. And so we have to have those conversations. Those have to be led by us and also facilitated at the sites too. But I also think that, for things that might be coming up, some things are hard to anticipate, but I would recommend that all of us educate ourselves, that we spend time paying attention to what assembly laws and state bills are in the works and what have passed, and learn those well, learn how they may impact our community and our students, to read critically and to really think thoughtfully, think in a thoughtful way just about what the laws say and how they may impact our schools. I think we also have to get proximate to the challenges that we're seeing, and also get proximate to those populations of students or community members who are experiencing the challenge and the pushback the most, to really understand their story. And I think in that regard, we have to believe people when they tell us their story. So when they tell us their truth, we have to believe them. And then finally, I think we have to speak up and advocate. I think if you're participating in a legislators lunch like this, you have some sort of interest in being an advocate. And so I would say really tap into that advocacy and that ability to speak up on behalf of yourself, on behalf of other communities, and really just be a participant in a very engaged way.
Let me just ask one follow-up question, because here in the state of California, 60% of the schools are considered small and or rural. Both of your school districts are close to major cities. Dr. Pease, yours is close to Sacramento. Dr. Sparks, yours is close to San Diego, just north of San Diego. But smaller districts in respect to San Diego Unified, Sacramento, Elk Grove. Do you think that kind of changes the dynamic in trying to move some of this curriculum, some of these instructional materials out into your communities when you have a big city that is close by to your district? Dr. Pease, I'll have you respond to that.
I don't know that it has any negative impact on it. We do look at surrounding districts to, evaluate programs and to help inform our decision making. Um, but being aware of what your community is involved in, challenges within the community, and just understanding the different dynamics is critical. And so while we use our surrounding districts as a way to kind of guide some of our thinking, it certainly is not the hard line when we're making decisions.
And Dr. Sparks, your thoughts?
Yeah, I've heard people refer to Oceanside before as small but mighty, and I actually would say that we're medium but mighty, and that we definitely pay attention to what's going on to the north of us in LA and to the south of us in San Diego, but we really are leading in our own respect and being out front with how we're leading for equity work. With just the establishment of our diversity, equity, and inclusion team 2 years ago, the equity audit that we conducted organizational wide, a couple of years ago as well. So I believe that, we pay attention, but we also are leading in our own respect. And we know that the issues that are facing my apologies. I was saying the issues that we're experiencing in our direct community are something that we are most equipped and the right folks to address.
All right, Dr. Pease, just so you know, just like the rest of our just like the rest of our chat today, I think everybody is making sure we respond with these smile files. We take that with us. Dr. Ayanna Pease, Director of Social Emotional Learning and Equity at the Folsom Cordova Unified School District, and Dr. Jordy Sparks, Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Student Supports over at the Oceanside Unified School District. For both of you, thank you so much for being with us today here on the ACSA Legislative Lunch Break. We look forward to seeing you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And folks, if you like what you have seen on our show, we invite you to like us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube. In fact, we have now gone over 3,000 subscribers. So thank you. When you subscribe to us or like us, you'll get instant updates when we're about to come on with breaking news and then previews for our regularly scheduled Wednesday broadcasts. And if you have great stories happening in your school communities, we want to tell your stories. Go ahead and send your news releases, your photos, your bullet points over to our EdCal editor, Michelle Carl, at mcarl@acsa.org. Great discussion today. One of the topics we'll be having over at our ACSA Leadership Summit coming November 2nd through 4th here in Sacramento. For a preview, take a look. That is ACSA Leadership Summit, November 2nd through 4th in Sacramento. For information and registration, go to acsa.org/professional-learning for more. Also want to remind you what we told you right at the top of the broadcast. On our ACSA Resource Hub, F3 Law and ACSA have partnered to create a one-pager and some additional information titled Adopting Curriculum and Related Resources. Go to the ACSA Resource Hub right now and take a look at that. And folks, thank you so much for joining us here on the live and interactive ACSA Legislative Lunch Break. Remember, we are live Wednesdays at 1 p.m. on ACSA Facebook and ACSA YouTube. Have a great rest of the day and rest of the week, and we'll see you next time.